Hi lovely booktubers. I'm Debs. Welcome back to my channel, Raina Read Stuff. I'm here in the book shack. I have a pile of books to go through for my weekly wrap up. Now, I haven't done quite as much reading this week. I've spent a couple of days down with family in Hampshire, but I have been reading still, so let's talk through what I've got. Um, We're in November, so that means nonfiction November. It means a winter of Wyndham. I haven't read any Wyndham this week. It means we're still in the fourth quarter of Historathon, and we are also in World War I November. And all of my reading this week has been concentrated around the First World War. So, I started with this First World War Britain. It's by Peter Doyle and it addresses various things that were happening in Britain at the start of and during the First World War. So it's got chapters on family life, on home and neighbourhood, food and drink, shopping, transport, entertainment, education and social service, health. One of the things actually was really quite interesting was that the health of the general populace of Britain improved during the First World War. Didn't improve for the armed forces, but it did improve for those at home. This is quite a good general look at what was happening in Britain. Lots of illustrations. I mean, that's before the start of the First World War. Lots of information, lots of illustrations, family life, a very quick read, but very interesting and quite a good overview. There's fireworks going off, by the way. It's 3:45 on a Sunday and it's still sort of daylight, but if you hear any explosions, that's what it is. Yeah, I found this fascinating. Quite a good general introduction, not to the First World War, but to the effects on the people in Britain. Another one I read was Posters of the First World War. This is by David Bounds and Robert Fleming and has been put together in association with the National Army Museum. And it's really interesting. Each page, it goes through the posters in date order. So we start with 1914, and there's a couple of pictures, and then there's the posters. So each double page has a poster, and then some information about that particular poster, who it was issued by, what it was designed for, and the reaction of people to it. And you can see that at the beginning of the war, then we were still looking at mainly text. And there's the Britain Needs You. But then we get on to the blackmail, the emotional blackmail. So it starts with things like Remember Belgium. And Britain was one of many countries to sign up to back the neutrality of smaller countries. So, of course, when the Germans marched through Belgium to get to France, that was when Britain entered the war. Um, it's got Commonwealth and other posters as well from Australia and New Zealand and Canada, from India, from Ireland. But we've got things like this. Yeah, come on, come and join the Jolly Jape. It's the Public Schools Brigade. And the posters like their picture, where is it? This one. Well, one of them. The women of Britain say go off to war. Of course they do. There's a famous one of a child sitting on her father's knee saying, "What did you do in the war, Daddy?" Um, so, any means possible to get people who hadn't already enlisted to do so before conscription started. There's also posters in there about saving for the war bonds, and helping finance the war. It was good. The posters are interesting. Um, some of them are quite offensive, but they're interesting. Then I read this, The Courage of Cowards by Karen Burnham. The Untold Stories of First World War Conscientious Objectors. In this, Burnham takes an overall view, but then she takes several specific case studies of people who wouldn't enlist because they were pacifists, and or for religious reasons or political reasons, they would not kill other people. And they were all different. So some of them joined a volunteer ambulance service that had been set up by the Quakers. So they were actually working on the front, doing their bit for the war effort without actually having to bear arms. Others took up roles on the home front that were deemed to be essential instead of joining the armed forces. More still, refused to do anything. They wouldn't do anything at all that helped the war effort because they fundamentally believed that war was wrong. And so they were jailed. Again, it's quite a short book, but there's quite a lot packed into it. I've got another book about conscientious objectors that I intend to read. But that was very interesting. Now, sticking with the non-fiction books, I am partway through Hugh Strachan's The First World War, and this is fascinating. Hugh Strachan is acknowledged as one of the experts on military history and specifically the First World War. There's lots of things in here that I actually didn't have a clue about, and at the grand old age of 58, I really ought to. I did history at school, and for our exams, I did 20th century political history. And it sort of whizzed through a century and taught us basic facts. But there's things I didn't know, like the fact that the war was also fought in Africa. I had absolutely no idea that at the outbreak of the First World War, the only countries in Africa that were independent of a European power's rule were Ethiopia and Liberia. Every single other country was ruled by Europe. And so there were German territories in Africa, and there were French and English and Portuguese, etc., etc. And the war was also fought in Africa between those territories. I had no clue. I also had no idea that there was a naval battle between the Germans and the British in the South Atlantic, because a German fleet which had been based in China had tried to get back to Europe by going via South America, um, and had made port in Chile, and some of the British fleet were in the Falklands at the time, and so there was a battle in the South Atlantic. I had no idea. I'm learning lots. Now, novels, because there's a novel section in the World War One November. I read, to start, the first one, I read Regeneration by Pat Barker, which is the first of the Regeneration trilogy. I have the other two. I intend to read both of those this month as well. This was brilliant, and this blends fact and fiction. There's a lot of research that has gone into it, and it deals with a hospital in Scotland where people who have mental health issues, soldiers or airmen or military people who have mental health issues, are sent. The idea is that the psychologists help them recover and then promptly send them back to war. And a couple of the war poets are there. So Siegfried Sassoon plays a big role in this novel. He is sent there under duress. He has protested to government about the futility of war and declared himself a pacifist. And he is going to be court-martialed when Robert Graves, the other war poet and a friend of his, steps in and has him sent to this hospital instead, so they can assess why this decorated war hero has suddenly decided that he is a pacifist. Wilfred Owen is also at this same hospital. Both of them, even though Siegfried Sassoon is committed to pacifism, both of them actually return to the front. But our star player here, our hero, is the psychiatrist who's treating them, who is an army psychiatrist called William Rivers. It's very interesting, and I'm not quite sure whether fact and fiction separate, but I'm really looking forward to reading the other two. The second non-fiction book, no, fiction, I'll start that sentence again. The second novel I read about the First World War comes under the prompt to read something about soldiers from the colonies. This is brilliant. Pat Barker's Regeneration was great. I really enjoyed it, but this was brilliant. This is about two Senegalese lads, they're 20, 21, who are sent to fight for the French, and they both sign up of their own volition. They try very hard to sign up, actually. One's refused to start with, and then goes into training, so he's actually fit enough to go to France to fight in the trenches. And at the beginning of the novel, he dies. He is blown up. He takes a long time to die. His name is November. Alpha is with him when he dies and cannot get over it. And this book is so beautifully written. There's a lot of repetition in there, which to me serves as the constant barrage of ammunition, of shells and bullets it's constant. The repetition in here is constant, but it's clever. It's really clever. And Alpha has to sit and watch November die, and then it's almost like a descent into madness. Well, it is a descent into madness. And he is trying to avenge his friend. They joined up because they wanted to become French citizens. They were going to move to a large city in Senegal. They were going to set up a shop. And now friends all over the place are dying horrifically. And Alpha makes the enemy pay to such an extent that he becomes outcast within his own battalion because they're scared. They're scared of him and they're scared of what he's doing. There's also, probably about halfway in, there is a lot of information about Senegal and their life in the village before they went to the trenches. And it's just a really, really powerful book. It's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So, that is by David Diop. At Night, All Blood is Black. If you haven't read it, I'd recommend it. Right, other things I'm partway through. The group read for World War One. Testament of Youth, Fear of Britain. Haven't got particularly far into this because I was engrossed by those two novels. But I'll get there. And the other thing I'm doing is reading a few of these every day. The Penguin Book of First World War poetry. And this not only includes British poets, but we have French poets, we have German poets, we have poets from all over the place. And I don't think you can read about First World War without taking in the First World War poets. So, 5 completed books, 3 partially completed books. Oh no, there's more. I'm also reading as a group read for Historathon with Stephanie Cohen and John David. Tony Jutt's Europe post. It's called Post-War Europe After 1945. We're reading that. It's a big chunky monkey, and we're reading that over November and December. So I'm partway through that. I'm going to add some things other than the First World War to my reading list this week, and I have more time. So, more non-fiction for Non-Fiction November. More, but different, I think, history for Historathon Q4, which is 1820 to the present day. I might stick a John Wyndham book in there. And carry on with the First World War stuff as well. Now, tomorrow is the big day. Tomorrow is November the 6th. I was very proud of myself today. I combed through my father's library. Now, my father died he died many years ago. My mum still has his library. The only person interested in his books is me. I found 4 volumes on the history of the First World War. They sort of came this big, the 4 volumes. I left them behind because tomorrow is Read What You Own. And even though I wouldn't buy them, stealing books from my father's library cannot be done until after I finish reading 100 books of my own. So, tomorrow is the Read What You Own challenge start, and I am pledging to read 100 books, physical books, that I own, before I buy or acquire, because I'm quite good at acquiring, before I acquire any more books. We'll see how that goes. I hope you've had a lovely week and a great weekend. and I will speak to you very soon. Please like and subscribe. That would be lovely. We could chat. If you're reading any of the First World War, if you're taking part in World War One November, let me know what you're reading. Any recommendations would be great. I've got a lot of stuff. I'm not sure I'm going to get through all of it, because I would like to read something else as well this month. But happy reading to you. I shall speak to you again very soon. Thank you for popping by. Bye for now.